It's such a different world over here. And
I realized I do not want to live in a pueblo.
how long did like the search process for you kind of take? Like, how many visits did you take to Spain? Like, what did that
Ah,
look like?
so I'm Eden Mannucci, and I'm a management consultant, and I live in Austin, Texas. And I lived in Spain actually as a little girl. My stepdad was in the Air Force, so I had the opportunity to live there for about 3 years when I was 8 until I was about 11. And we lived in Calatayud, which is in between Madrid and Zaragoza. So I think that began my interest in Spain. And so I've always enjoyed it and the lifestyle and the culture. I just feel really comfortable there. And I introduced my husband to Spain a few years ago. We are interested in food and drink and wine and culture and art, and Spain really checks all of those boxes. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Is your husband, where is he from? Had he ever been to Spain
So
before?
he had never been to Spain before. And in the last several years, he started doing a lot of traveling in Europe for work. And so I said, you can go wherever you want. But if you go to Spain for work, like I'm coming along. Like that's a trip. That's a trip I'm tagging along for. And so when he went to Spain, I went along and I really just showed him Barcelona and a few other places, but it wasn't that extensive. Anyway, but that's like initiated this. But he's
Yeah.
from Wisconsin. Part of what's making this process easier is that we recently got his Italian citizenship through his great grandmother. So
Yep, I did the exact same thing. That's why
oh
I get
yeah,
to be here. My wife
that's
is from Croatia, so she had the
uh-huh.
passport, but my great grandfather is from Sicily. So we went through that
Oh,
whole long process to
right.
get the passport.
So yeah, it is a long process, and it just came through. Like it just came through right before we were signing for the house. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's great. It makes everything just so much easier when you have that passport.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, we had a plan B, but plan A is much easier. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You get the
Yeah.
shorter lines at the border.
We just purchased a house. We actually closed on it January 19th. So, I mean, just purchased
Oh,
it.
wow.
So the house is in Cuenca, which, which that's the look
Yeah,
that
I don't know where
everybody.
that is. I don't think I've heard of
Well,
Cuenca.
so here's the deal. So the house is in Cuenca. So Cuenca is in between. If you draw a line from Madrid to Valencia,
Mhm.
Cuenca is right in the middle. And it is less than an hour on the high-speed train to Madrid. And it is less than
Great.
an hour on the high-speed train to the beach. And those high-speed trains, I mean, it's less than the cost of gas and parking in either
Mhm.
of those places. Cuenca wasn't even on our radar. We'd been reading your newsletter like faithfully for like, I mean, I think since you started it. I think
Oh,
I
that's
was
so
one of the
great.
first subscribers. We'd been reading it and kind of thinking about places in Andalusia or Valencia, and we'd kind of settled on Valencia region. We went over for a vibe check last summer. We were like, we're not really going to be, super touristy, but we're going to just get vibes. We're going to go visit these places that I've seen, some great houses online, but let's go see what they actually look like. And let's go to some of these towns that I think sound really interesting, but let's go check out the vibe. And
Mhm.
so we stayed, our base was in Valencia mostly, and we went around and we learned a lot. I realized I do not want to live in a pueblo. A lot of the houses that looked great to me, the surrounding area or the town wasn't really what I wanted. I mean, my husband would have been fine. He would like to live remotely, but my one requirement was that I wanted to have a home that was walkable, to a lot of services and whatever. I did not want to have to take a car every day because we have to do that here. I mean, I am tired of suburban sprawl.
I
And
understand.
so, so we had checked out Xàtiva and Buñol and
Mhm.
Valencia and right around there. So in the interim, we'd been planning this for the last couple of years. And during the pandemic, I started talking with a few people on conversation exchange because I wanted to improve my Castilian Spanish. And one of the people that I started talking with was an archaeologist from Madrid. We've been continuing to talk for the last 2.5, 3 years. So he became the director of the Archaeological Museum of Cuenca. So we only went to Cuenca because we were visiting him. I mean,
Wow.
Cuenca was not on our radar at all. And so we went to Cuenca And we were walking with him. And I think within the first 10 minutes of walking, and I know you're not familiar with it, but it is just, it's amazing, of walking up this hill where there's this gorgeous natural landscape. And I was like, hold up. Like, you live here, you get to work here, this is part of your life. And so we were just really enthralled with the town. So it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I think it is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year of being a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so, but it's a town of about 55,000 people. So it has an old town of Casco Antiguo, but then it also has a new town. So it's got multiple hospitals, universities, over 20 museums. Some of them are world class. And,
Wow.
Being situated as it is, so close to everything else, it's really awesome. We just loved it. And our house is actually in the Casco, Historico. It's actually up on this hill, and we walk out our door and we're in a medieval village. We walk 10 minutes down the hill, we're in the new town. It's really my dream home. So,
that's
yeah.
amazing. That's for, you can't beat that. I mean, if it's your dream home in this great sounding place, I need to come visit you now once you get settled in,
do.
because this town sounds amazing.
It is. No, it really, and it's a little bit of a hidden gem. So, I was planning to say, oh, we live in Cuenca and no one else should come there because it is, but it truly is a hidden gem, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And the other thing about it is that it is where the Spanish abstract and contemporary artists hung out during the Franco regime. It's where they gathered, and so it is sort of the heart of abstract and contemporary art in Spain. And something that I've always loved about Spain is that combination of sort of classic and historic culture combined with all of this really innovative and cutting edge art. I mean, I love the juxtaposition of those two things. And when we got to Cuenca, it was like, this is sort of one of the homes of that. And so it is the home of the Spanish Abstract Art Museum, amongst many other museums. It's got Michelin star restaurants.
It sounds great.
5 minutes from our house, 10 minutes from our house, we're in we're in a Michelin star restaurant. 15 minutes, we're on a great hiking trail with kayaking and, rock climbing, but, plus all of this other culture. So yeah, it really is a great town. Yes, you're invited and you have to come visit.
Awesome. We will be there for sure. This sounds like an incredible place.
I had checked with an attorney, and kind of talked through some stuff. And she was like, you don't need an attorney for this. You can do this. She was a Spanish attorney, and she was like, you don't need an attorney for this. And I'm like, okay. Cuenca is kind of such a small town. We hooked up with a real estate agent. We have our friends there. And I really felt comfortable proceeding without an attorney, mostly because we'd done so much research. There's so many checklists, that you have. There's other things we've seen. So it's like, I understand the process. And I felt pretty confident that we were dealing with people who were very straightforward, very authentic. But the most difficult thing was that this town wasn't used to foreign buyers. They weren't used to laying out everything very clearly about what we need to do. And so I think two things that were really hard. One was opening up the Spanish bank account. That was difficult. I would say by Spanish standards, it was probably just fine, but it made me really anxious, the amount of time it took, the amount of documentation that I had to show to prove that we weren't money launderers, all of that background information. And I think that the thing that surprised me, that was really that gave me the most stress, was our real estate agent had been great and, telling us what the process was going to be sort of and what we needed. But sort of 2 days before closing, the notario started asking for things. And they started asking for, again, anti-money laundering things. They wanted to see all sorts of documentation. And so the day before we closed, they're like, we need this letter, signed by your bank in the United States that says you're the owner and all of this stuff. And it's like, there's a 7-hour time difference. I can't even ask for this until 4 p.m. Spanish time. So I was really stressed. And I think if I would do things differently, I would have started that conversation a lot sooner, because I kind of thought I'd satisfied the bank and that I was sort of home free. The notario wanted to see all of the proof of funds again at the last minute. They also said, oh, it all has to be translated into Spanish. I was like, I mean, we have less than 24 hours here. Yeah. In the end, they didn't need that. But I think, I think that was the most stressful, was just sort of the administrative piece of it. I felt really comfortable with who I was working with and dealing with, but that gave me a lot of stress.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
makes perfect sense. Plus side, it's great that, you felt comfortable with everyone involved in the transaction. And that's probably one of the
right.
benefits of being in like a more smaller,
Yes.
less exposed to, expat groups and things, town, where you're not going to interact with like some of the shadier agents or notarios that
That's
unfortunately
exactly how we
exist.
felt. And yeah,
But
that's what I was telling because my husband was back here and I was
yeah,
there, but that's how I felt because I had my Spanish
wow.
friends. That was definitely how I felt is that these people were
Hmm.
authentic. I mean, and also what surprised me is we went to go look at the house and the owners were there. Like in the US, you go to a house and it's empty and it's staged and it's clean. But they were also really great people. And,
Hmm.
we went out for drinks after closing. They're going to introduce us to the neighbors who are demanding to meet us.
Yeah,
So,
it's such a different world over here. It's
right.
like it's not just a transaction to them. Like you're inheriting their house, basically. I mean, you're buying it,
Mhm.
obviously. You didn't inherit it, but
Right.
it's a
Right.
big deal to the seller. It's not just like another commodity trading thing like it can be in the US.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I even
Yeah.
wrote like a little love letter because there was somebody else who was interested in
Oh.
the house. And I was like, I don't know if y'all do this here, but I want to let you know what our intent is with this home.
Oh, that's great. That probably
I want to
helped
play
give
with
you a
my
leg up.
grandchildren here. Like
Yeah,
we want to pass this on to our children.
that's great.
Sure, there were no unexpected costs. If you educate yourself about the process and you're going to have to pay a bunch of tax up front and,
Hmm.
all of those things. But we paid just a little under 300,000 euros. We offered well, we started offering lower, but we ended up kind of settling on about 5,000 euros less than the asking price.
Okay.
And so,
Hmm.
which I think was maybe a little high, but we need to get this done. This is the home of our
Yeah.
dreams. And coming from Austin, Texas, where people are actually offering hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking. And I mean, it's a crazy world over here. So we were
Yeah.
like, let's just cut through this and make sure that we, get this done.
Hmm.
But there were no real unexpected costs. No, not
Okay.
really.
Yeah. Well,
No,
that's
I mean,
good.
but I think that's because we were pretty well educated.
Yeah, that
You
helps a
know,
lot because I think a
yeah.
lot of people aren't clear on the upfront tax. Like I always tell people as a general rule, budget 10% of the purchase price in extra fees because that upfront
Absolutely.
transfer tax is a huge chunk,
Absolutely.
which can turn a lot of people away in the beginning. But looking at it through an American lens, the annual
Oh,
property taxes are so low
oh,
on this
oh,
the property.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, our property taxes, here in the Austin area are really high. It's a big chunk of money, but like you said, we
Mhm.
budgeted that, and that really covered the fees for the notario, the fees for the gestor to do the transfer for me, and the gestor only charged it was like 80 euros. So, but that did cover the notario, the gestor, and I think that was just about it. Yeah, 10% was
That's great.
just right on target. Hmm.
Yep. All right. Good. Good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So the great thing about this house, and we had looked at a bunch of things, like some that needed total redos, and we were like,
Mhm.
I don't know if we have the money or the energy for like a huge renovation. So this house is in great shape. We could move in and do nothing. It was built around 1930, maybe. It's built into the cliff.
Oh,
There's a
wow.
rock wall, in the living room. I mean,
Yeah.
that is actually the rock. The cliff, we're on a little outcropping. So we are not so much doing renovations as just painting. We're going to get it painted. We might change out some tile, but just cosmetic for the most part. It really doesn't need anything. We are thinking of putting in a bathroom. It only has one bathroom upstairs. We would like to have a bathroom downstairs. We have enough room to do that. So we're thinking of doing that, but that's about the only like actual renovation. Everything else is just going to be kind of cosmetic.
Sometimes the really cheap properties are exciting because it's a low price, but it needs, doubled in renovation work. Whereas you spend a little bit more upfront, you just cosmetic things, which are way less of an intimidating, way less of a project to manage. So it's a good way to go.
Exactly. I mean, because we had started out looking at cheaper houses when we, and
Hmm.
then but when we came to this one, it just ticked all of the boxes. And one of the things was it doesn't
Yeah.
actually need renovations. It has brand new windows. I mean, it has like a whole lot of things that the owners who are there, they really did a lot of improvements over the years.
How many rooms is it, and like what's the size of the
Oh,
house?
sure. So it's 1,200 square feet, which for us, kind of coming from Texas, is kind of modest. 3 bedrooms, a really large kitchen, and a very decent living room. But the key about this house, the thing that's amazing is that it has 2 terraces.
Oh,
So it
wow.
is a completely independent home in an urban area, which is hard to
Rare.
find.
Yeah,
It
that's
is. It
fair.
is
Yeah.
hard to find, and it is walkable to everything. And it has a one terrace, I call it the lower terrace, where we have one of the postcard views of the town. Like that's where we drink our morning coffee. And then it has the upper terrace, which overlooks the gorge of one of the rivers that runs around the town. So we have a beautiful natural view on one terrace. And so really the house is all about the terraces. So we kind of feel like we bought the terraces, which have this amazing view. And we couldn't find that. I mean, the only other terraces that we found like that were in some houses that were over $1 million. Or we're not spending $1 million. Yeah.
That's the outdoor space is
And
what you want in Spain.
exactly. And behind us, from us up until as you go up the hill to the Spanish Abstract Art Museum, which is the first building behind us, all it is scenic overlook. So our entire backyard that we don't own and don't have to maintain is a scenic overlook.
That's nice.
And
Yeah.
to the right of us is also just a beautiful area that will never be developed. So and the other side is this gorge. So I mean, we're kind of in a really sweet spot.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
I think the only thing I do differently is probably reach out and try to like make an offer sooner. We were waiting sort of until we were ready, and we weren't necessarily ready. I mean, here I am still, I'm back in Austin. I mean, we weren't necessarily ready, and we were just planning an upcoming trip. And I reached out to the owner, and she was like, "Oh yeah, there's some interest." I would have just pursued it a little bit sooner. I don't think I would have kept this what I think is like a little bit of an American idea of don't show any interest and be real coy. I think I just would have gone for it probably sooner.
That's good advice. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. Like, just if you want to go for it, go for it.
Go for it. Just go for it. I mean, what's the difference? So
Yeah.
that's probably all I would have done, I think, differently.
It sounds
And I
like an
held back.
amazing house and a great
Yeah.
location. Like, it sounds wonderful.
Thank you. It really is. So I spent the
Yeah.
entire month of January there because I knew we needed to close before the end of January. So I spent the whole month in an Airbnb not far from the house, and just everything I
Mhm.
saw. I mean, in that entire month, it was like just checking yes, 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 validating all of our decisions. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good feeling. How long did like the search process for you kind of take? Like, how many visits did you take to Spain? Like, what did that
Ah,
look like?
well, so we hatched this idea at the beginning of 2020. So during the pandemic, we hatched the idea that we should relocate to Spain. And that was for a number of reasons. I mean, I think that, 2020 really opened our eyes to a lot of kind of financial vulnerability that we kind of had, I mean, so many things were in upheaval during the pandemic.
Mhm.
And we just saw that Spain offered the opportunity for a very sustainable retirement. And the healthcare being awesome and the
Mhm.
affordability and all of that. So I probably started looking on Idealista back in 2020, but I was looking all over Spain. So I really looked for a very long time, but honestly, June of last year, when we got back, I found this house. So I found the house pretty quickly. I never thought that it could be ours. Yeah, it's such a unique home. One of the bigger things, and this is what your newsletter helped with, but also getting an idea of what kind of properties are available was
Mhm.
was like, do we need I mean, I finally realized, oh, we kind of need a village house to satisfy. My husband wants it to be independent. I want it to be walkable. Like trying to figure
Yeah,
out, what the options are because it's different,
it's so
everywhere.
different. Yeah,
It's,
the
it's like,
houses.
yeah, what's there?